Greetings, fellow Whovians, and welcome back to Unrepentant Geeking, the show where a geek can be a geek. And here we are almost at the end of the season, and my, has the time flown. And yes, for those of you asking, this is the first episode of Unrepentant Geeking recorded on my new computer. I love it. I love my new computer a lot. You won't notice any dramatic changes with this episode. I'm working on stuff. I'm still working on getting new things installed, on changing up my setup. So for now, I'm mainly sticking to the same old approach. But once we're done with Doctor Who and I take a bit of a break to, really get everything set up for the computer, you may see some changes going forward. Regardless, let's get down to why you're really here. Let's talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who. Okay, so It Takes You Away is the ninth and penultimate episode of the 11th series of Doctor Who. 11th in the terms of New Who in the new series. It comes to us written by Ed Heim, directed by Jamie Childs. And technically it's the penultimate. Of course, we do still have two more episodes technically, but the second episode remaining is going to be the New Year's special. So, how you count that. Anyways, this is It Takes You Away, and yeah, this was a pretty damn good episode. Not perfect. We'll get into a few of the problem points I had, but overall, this is about what you could want, I think, from an episode of Who. This one was creepy at times. It was heartbreaking. It was funny. It was exciting. It was a really great episode. And I have to start out by saying, I will not be satisfied in life. I will not be satisfied in life until the Woolly Rebellion is brought to screen in some fashion or some form. I don't even need an entire episode built around it, but I want to see it. And I don't think I'm the only one. The Woolly Rebellion must be allowed to happen. It must. No, but seriously though, this was a fascinating episode of Doctor Who. It doesn't really end up having an out-and-out villain in any way unless you count Ribbons, and we'll get back to him because, yeah, he's one of the problems. The threat in this episode, as it were, is really more of a complicated individual. And the solo track is interesting. It's an interesting concept, kind of crazy out there, the kind of big, over-the-top, not quite able to parse science fiction concept that great science fiction should be tackling, and that Doctor Who at its best can do very well, and I think overall it does it very well. The solo track is a tragic entity, as it were, a sentient universe, exiled out on its own, always looking and searching for companionship, never capable of having it. And yeah, I like the way we slowly unveil what it is, and I really liked that last scene between the Doctor and the solo track, except for one little thing. And that's one of my big problems with the episode, the frog. Now, I want to be clear, conceptually, I'm quite fine with the idea of the solo track taking on the form of a frog. It's better than trying to, for example, like I heard some people suggest, shove in one of the Doctor's old companions, or, God, even River Song, or something along that lines. I think that would have been a distraction, and I think it would have been an unnecessary distraction. I desperately want to see River meet up with the 13th Doctor, and I'm convinced it's going to happen eventually in some form or another. But I'm glad they didn't do it here, for example. And I think, like I said, conceptually, I have no problem with the frog. It's in execution. It wasn't a very convincing effect. And I don't think the unconvincing was deliberate. I don't know if they didn't have time. I don't know if they didn't have budget. I don't know if they just didn't bother. I found the frog oddly fake in a way that I don't think I was meant to. And it was like, it's like the difference between laughing with someone and laughing at someone. And I wasn't laughing at the frog, but basically that's the equivalent to how I felt about it. It's a relatively small gripe in the face of everything else the episode gets right. But it is one, and it's one I felt like I needed to note. Another problem with the episode, to me, this was a much bigger one, and that's Eric. See, I like what the episode did with Eric. That's of course the father of our young blind girl, who is definitely she's one of the highlights of this episode. She really just I think that Ellie Walwork did a great job playing her. I think that the episode did a good job of not engaging in ableism, not making her, oh look, the poor tragic blind girl, not overdoing it, not underdoing it. It's just a part of her character. It's a part of who she is. And I liked everything about how the episode did with her. I like the way she's the one who's not fooled, because she's the one who can see more clearly, no pun intended. And she immediately doesn't fall for it, because she's more or less, she's clearly still misses her mom, but she's more or less accepted that she's gone in a way that Eric can't. My problem, look, Eric is despicable. Like, he's detestable. What he does, he's, the implication is he basically abandons her, probably for good. If the doctor and friends hadn't shown up, he abandons her to basically die. I mean, yeah, she's not some helpless blind girl, but at the same time, she thinks there's a monster in the woods. She's alone in an isolated area that you can only get out of by boat. She's only got so much food, assuming he stays there forever and nothing and the universe doesn't go explodey as a result, what happens to her? Does he even care? Arguably, no. I don't think he does. And I understand the episode is trying to establish that Eric isn't well, and that Eric is broken inside, and that Eric needs help, and all that, and fine. This is not a knock against Christian Rubik, who plays Eric. He does a fine job with the character. It's more like the resolution. I mean, I'm like, hi, are we really comfortable with this guy getting to just go home to Oslo with his daughter? I mean, he did some terrible things. At the very least, you would think, yes, as the police officer would go, whoa, buddy. We're going to take you and your daughter back to Oslo. We're going to get your daughter into a safe place. And then we're going to go to whatever the equivalent to Child Protective Services is in Oslo. And they're going to start keeping an eye on you two. Because frankly, yeah, maybe you've come around, but maybe you're just going to relapse. Because you are either an awful human being or so incredibly damaged by the loss of your wife that you are not trustworthy with your daughter. Either way. And I understand this is because you only have so much time to wrap up the episode. And that leads me to my last of the big problems, and that's Ribbons. And again, this is not a knock on the actor. Kevin Eldon, who plays Ribbons, does a fine job with the character. I don't want any, this is not me saying, oh, he played him badly. It's just, Ribbons is completely unnecessary to this episode. He's filler. He's just filler. Yeah, he brings a couple of things sort of semi-thematically to the episode, but nothing, and yeah, he introduces the threat of the mobs and all that stuff, but nothing that he does couldn't be accomplished in much shorter time by just having the doctor do a quick little, oh, look, those mobs, we should be careful. Oh, look, this place is dangerous, we should be careful, etc. And basically, my problem with Ribbons is he's filler in an episode that really, really doesn't need filler. Like, It Takes You Away already has plenty, more than enough material to fill an episode. We do not need to waste 10, 15, however many minutes on this whole little diversion with this character who just doesn't fit. I mean, they don't even explain what he's doing there. The explanation, oh, he's always been there. Oh, okay, sure, I guess. I mean, like, why does this strange, is he even real, whatever, want the Sonic so badly? I mean, nothing about this character. I understand, look, It Takes You Away is very clearly a fairy tale episode of Doctor Who, in the classic style of Moffat. No, this is the kind of episode that could have fit very easily into the 11th Doctor era, or even that first season of the 12th Doctor, which were all times when Moffat was still very much pushing and exploring the whole idea of Doctor as fairy tale. He largely abandoned that in the last couple last couple seasons of the Doctor. He dialed back on that to some degree, especially the last season. But regardless, this is very much a fairy tale episode. The Doctor, you have the mirrors, you have the monster, you have the lone girl in the woods. You have the creature that isn't what it seems. This episode is soaked in fairy tales. Hell, the whole concept of the Solar Trek is a fairy tale told to the Doctor when she was young. I mean, everything about it, and for the most part, it works. And I get that in that sense, Ribbons kind of fits like the classic troll, the classic not to be trusted, not what he seems figure in a fairy tale. But really, like I said, you will largely accomplish that anyways, and I don't feel like what he brings to the episode outweighs what he takes away, which is precious time. And I would have much rather spent that time with more time with Graham, more time with the daughter dealing with the aftermath, just more time dealing with the stuff in this episode that mattered. It doesn't ruin the episode. This is a great episode. This is a B+ episode. Easily. Maybe even an A-. It's a really strong episode of Doctor Who. There's a lot to love. what they do with Graham and what they do with Grace, the fake Grace, all that, I literally, as it became clear to me about, which was like a few minutes before the episode revealed where we were going, I started to go, oh no. I started to go, please don't do this, and then they did it, and it was perfect, because, it's like, you both did and didn't want them to bring Grace back, and I love that lovely little moment at the end, that lovely little moment between Ryan and Graham. The show's been building to it the whole season. Like, we basically haven't ended up getting an ongoing plot arc, as it were, in the way that we always got during the RTD and the Moffat eras, where we'd always get, little plot words that would be sprinkled throughout, Bad Wolf, or things like that. You all know what I mean. We do still technically have one episode left in the season, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple points from earlier in the season come back, but basically we haven't gotten he meant it. Chibnall meant it, that he was doing a largely a season filled with standalone episodes, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's been a great thing overall. This has been an outstanding season, as I've said multiple times. But it's interesting that instead of like getting an ongoing plot arc, we've really gotten character arcs that have been more strongly defined. And we've gotten, like, the way Ryan behaves, the coldness that he is at first towards Hannah, and the correct assumption, as it turns out, about the father really builds on a lot of elements that we've gotten with Ryan throughout the season. And Graham's reaction to Grace and dealing with all that is definitely continuing on from that. Even Yaz, who, once again, is probably definitely the least served of the three companions. She does get some nice moments. I love that moment of reversing the polarity between her and the Doctor. I really hope that, this has clearly been more of a Graham and Ryan season in terms of companions, and it feels like we're coming to a head with their plot arc for now, their character arcs. So I'm hoping that means next season we get more with Mandip Gill, because she's so good as Yaz. And I like the character overall. I would just like a little more definition and a little more focus. Anyways, I'm not gonna relitigate that again. I've made my point. Overall, though, I thought this was such a good episode. I love all the little touches. I love the fake out of the monster. I love the reveal of what the solar tract is and the way that all plays out. I love that little scene between the solar tract and the Doctor. As much as I don't like the frog in terms of mechanically, in the terms of the way it's executed, the concept is wonderful, and the writing and the performance. And oh my god, Jodie Whittaker truly has become the 13th Doctor at this point. Like, her Doctor, over the last 3 or 4 episodes, is really come into focus, really come into her own. That moment of the way what she writes on the wall, that's a specific moment that's very specific to the 13th Doctor. I don't think the 11th or 12th or 10th or 9th, I'm not sure any other version, maybe the 5th, but certainly none of the other new Doctors would have been concerned in that way that the 13th is about the specifics of Hannah and what happens to her. Which is also, again, why the ending feels a little too simple and a little too pat. I mean, really, Eric needed to be brought to task. What he did was just beyond despicable. But, again, it's a fairy tale, and we only have so much time. I just would have liked a little more, even just lip service towards the idea that we're not just going to send these two off, that maybe we're going to take some sort of steps. Like, even just Yaz going, yeah, I'm going to call, I've got a friend in Oslo, or I've got friends on the force, I'll call somebody, and they'll check in on them. Just something to make it clear that we're not just going to abandon Hannah again to a really untrustworthy parental figure. And that being said, I do like that the show doesn't pull any punches. Like, Hannah knows. Hannah clearly knows what was going on by the end, and you do get the sense that their relationship has at least changed somewhat. But again, if we'd taken out ribbons, we might have had a little more time to explore that. We didn't. Oh well. Overall, I really loved It Takes You Away. It was a very strong episode, and it continues to prove that this season of Doctor Who, this version of Doctor Who, can do its own thing while still feeling very much like Doctor Who. It's new, as I continually say, same but different, different but the same. And yeah, I'm really excited for the finale, and I can't wait to see where things are going from here. And that's going to do it for this episode of Unrepentant Geeking. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for sharing, thank you for liking, thank you for whatever you're doing in regards to supporting this show. Even if it's just watching, I appreciate you all. We'll be back here next week with a look at the final episode of this season of Who, not counting the New Year special, and a look back at the season in general. I think that would be appropriate. I might even do that as a separate episode. We'll see. I haven't decided yet. Regardless, we'll definitely be covering the big season finale and I'm looking forward to it. So then, until next time, for Unrepentant Geeking, this is Shaun wishing you all long days and pleasant nights.